I want to do sports talk radio, but everybody wanted to do that. And I got there, and my boss was like, yeah, you got to host this weekly hunting and fishing talk show. The best thing we can do is be transparent. You know, there's some people on a lot of the hunting shows on Outdoor Channel and Sportsman Channel. I don't think that's the case. Bo Jackson. Bo knows baseball, Bo knows football, Bo knows bow hunting. No skinny jean, no mohawk. It's just good old boys singing real country music the way Hank intended it. A buddy of mine lives just outside of San Antonio, and he has every night usually 20 axis deer and 20 whitetail. As someone who started turkey hunting before elk hunting, an elk is like a 600 or 700 pound turkey. When those elk start bugling, it's just like when you've got a gobbler fired up looking for a hen. The anti-hunters that preach that vile hate for us, we're not changing their mind. And when you reply to them in the way that they talk to you, all it does is make you look bad to the people that are on the fence. Hey y'all, Cable Smith, host of the Lone Star Outdoors show here, and this is episode 40 of Living Country in the City.
Y'all ready for your dose of flyover state spirit? Straight from the concrete jungle? Well, put down your latte and pull on your boots. It's time for Living Country in the City.
Hey y'all, thanks for joining me for episode 40 of Living Country in the City. Now I want y'all to kick back, throw on your cowboy hats, and grab a beer, because today I'm talking with born and bred Texas boy and host of the Lone Star Outdoor show, Cable Smith. Cable, good to have you on the show today.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Pleasure, brother. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I always like to start out with just, a little intro about yourself and kind of your history with hunting. How'd you kind of get into the outdoors?
Oh man, well, I grew up actually bass fishing. My dad he's a pretty hardcore bass guy, and I was real involved with sports. So like hunting was really just not a part of my childhood. I was always intrigued by it, but just never did it. We didn't have guns, and so it was all fishing, camping, hiking. We were pretty outdoor oriented. But it wasn't until college I bought a chocolate lab with a girlfriend. She left, the lab stayed, and. Yeah, I won on that deal. So
that's a country song right there, man.
Yeah, she's gone, but I got the dog. Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, some of my buddies were just like, "Hey, let's go duck hunting," and I was like, "I think I'm gonna drink beer and chase girls, guys." So, like, well, we want to take your dog, and I was like, "All right, if he's gonna go, I guess I'll go." So, they talked me into it, and we were terrible shots. I think they were all kind of new to it as well. And that dog, poor Maverick, I had to tie him to the blind. He'd sit there and shiver every time we'd miss. And I guess by the grace of God, somebody finally knocked down a mallard duck, and I took that dog off of his leash and let him go get it. And that was all she wrote. He was no longer gun shy, and I was hooked, man. So that's kind of where that started. And gosh, I'm 36. That was 15 years ago. Just kind of never looked back as far as the hunting goes. And I do like hunting more than fishing now. I still, it's hard. It's like saying which kid do you love better, but I definitely prefer hunting. Although I still enjoy bass fishing and saltwater fishing as well. But that's general, the abbreviated overview.
So you're Texas born and bred, right?
Oh yeah.
And grew up fishing. Ended up getting into duck hunting with your friends. So what kind of took you from duck hunting to bigger game?
Well, so I still like anything I can hunt with my dogs. And I'll tell you a little bit, just kind of what I figured out in the outdoor industry over the years is there's no money in duck hunting or bird hunting, like from a sponsorship standpoint. There's just not a lot. So I'm fortunate we have like a decoy sponsor, duck decoy sponsor. But other than like a pair of waders and stuff, no one's writing a check. What people want to see is, big game animals. And so over the years, I've transitioned more, and I hate it because I feel like I'm cheating on my dog still every time I leave with a rifle instead of a shotgun. And she looks at me and is like, "This is not the deal we agreed on, but it is what it is." So I mean, it's not a bad deal saying, "Well, I got to go deer hunting," instead of duck hunting. You're still winning. But that's kind of where I realized, gosh, if I want to do this for a living, really got to start focusing more on big game, because that's where the sponsorship dollars are. So that's kind of how that evolved, and now elk hunting is probably my favorite thing in the whole world. I know you just got back from an elk hunt. It looked like the weather was terrible, by the way.
Yeah, just to say the least. Yeah.
Yeah. No. And where were you?
I went out. I was in, I guess, central eastern Idaho.
Okay.
I was out in Lemmy Zone. If that's a little more detail, but yeah, I definitely got in, and I'd seen that the weather was changing, and so I took some gear to help me with the cold weather, but the forecast said, a couple of days of rain, maybe a day of snow.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, that's not bad. Yeah, I think I had a half of a sunny day going in, and then half of a sunny day the next day, and other than that, it didn't stop just pissing rain and dumping snow the entire time.
Yeah, man. I was just in New Mexico on a mule deer hunt. It was kind of the same scenario, but you can't ever get an accurate forecast at elevations of 10 to 12,000 feet. You can find the nearest city, and it is not going to be what it's like up there in the mountains. Not even close. So that's one thing that was really hit home for me this season was you can look at all the forecasts you want, but you never know what's going to happen on the mountain.
Absolutely, and I've been sent some great resources. I'm gonna have to look them up. I forget the names. I think Weather Underground is one.
Uh-huh.
There's a few resources that kind of their specialty is trying to get those higher elevations and give you those details you wouldn't normally get, just from visiting, checking Siri or visiting weather.com.
Mm-hmm.
But even that, you can only get so accurate. Heck, how accurate is the weather even in the middle of the city? It's like,
yeah.
I've been standing outside watching it rain, and it's telling me that it's supposed to be 72 and sunny here in Southern California.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned Weather Underground. That's one I've been using for a long time. As far as even for duck hunting, wind is such a big part of hunting in general. Whether it's ducks, and you need to set up with the wind. With the ducks want to light into the wind, or if you're deer hunting and you've got to pick which stand you're going to sit in based on what the wind is doing. So absolutely, but yeah, man. So I'm sorry to hear about your knees. That's a bad deal, but you kind of told me off the air there that it could have been worse.
Yeah, as far as like I said, as far as injuries go, you never hope for an injury, but when you have one, I'll take results like this. It's two torn or a meniscus torn in both knees, and it's hopefully a fairly minor tear that will, a quick surgery or some physical therapy will fix up, strengthen those knees and get back out before the end of the year. Hopefully hit some of these end of the year hunts.
Yeah, right on. Well, hey, I was looking at. This is kind of off the cusp here, but I was looking at your website earlier, Sam, and you have beer listed here as Shiner Bock, which is totally Texas. I didn't even know you guys got that in California.
Admittedly, it's a struggle to find, but I'm lucky enough to have. I know of a couple of bars that carry it, just randomly, and then there is this little grocery store just around the corner from me. It's like in the corner of a strip mall, and it's, probably not even 50 yards across. It's teeny grocery store, but they carry, they'll always have at least 1 or 2 sixes of Shiner Bock. And, I learned about it from a Texas friend, that I met up with at, it's got to come from somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
I was down at a place called Cowboy Country in Long Beach. Really cool bar. They've got great live music and line dancing, and was down there and had a friend offer to buy me beer. I'm like, well, what are you drinking? Shiner Bock. I'm like, I never heard of it. Introduced me to it, and oh my gosh, it's my absolute favorite beer without a doubt. Not to take anything away from Lone Star.
There you go.
Gotta give some love. I definitely I haven't tried it as much. Yeah, Shiner's hard enough to find. Lone Star is just non-existent out here.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. But yeah, they're a long-time supporter of our show, so we do love our Lone Star beer at Shiner Bock. Pretty tasty as well. So
Can't go wrong with those Texas beers at all.
that's right. That's right.
But I actually had a question for you. You talked a lot about duck hunting, and there's not quite as much money in that. And one thing I've had some discussions with folks about this, and it almost kind of feels like not so much that it's disappearing, but duck hunting feels like it's almost becoming a bit more of a thing of the past. Like, people still do it, but it's not what it used to be. I feel like that was the thing you did back in the day. Like, you got together with your buddies.
Yeah.
And people still do that. But what are your thoughts? Do you think duck hunting has been on the decline?
Oh yeah. There's no doubt. I think Delta Waterfowl, if anybody is a member or gets their magazine, comes out bi-monthly. Great conservation organization. But yeah, they had a story in there. I think it was by Paul Waite. It was the cover story, and it was on the declining number of waterfowlers. And it's not an opinion deal. I mean, it's facts, because the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service knows how many duck stamps are sold every year. All they say is, okay, here's how many duck stamps are sold, and here's how many duck hunters we have, and it is on the decline, which is surprising to me with shows like Duck Dynasty. Over the last 7-8 years, a show like that has had such widespread appeal, not just to the hunting public, but just America in general.
Mm-hmm.
So it is surprising. I think, and the article alluded to, it's hunter access. That's really the problem, and hunters will tell you. And I've been that hunter. When I started waterfowling 15 years ago, man, I was up at, sometimes actually we just spent the night out there. Maybe had 2 or 3 too many shiners and just put a sleeping bag up by our duck blind, and that was just so we could claim our spot, because there were so many other hunters, and that I've only seen increase. So it's kind of a weird paradox, because you see more people at the boat ramp. It's harder to hunt public land, but yet our waterfowl numbers are declining. So to me, that just says, okay, there's not as much accessible waterfowling habitat as there once was. So it does kind of suck, and it, you hate to see that. So I would say everybody's goal every year, if you duck hunt, is just take one new person duck hunting, whether it's a kid or a college buddy, like the guys that took me all those years ago. I mean, hell, that's how I get to hunt for a career and a living. And that was solely just because at some point in my life, someone said, hey, let's go duck hunting. And there you go. So,
well, I feel like one of the cool things about just hunting birds in general, and I've talked with a lot of folks about this, is that, it's a lot more of a social game than something like deer hunting or just any big game hunting, however you do it. It's about being out there with your buddies. Like you said, typically you'll have a few beers, you'll have some laughs. It's not, you're not sitting there like having to be absolutely still and absolutely quiet the entire time.
Yeah.
And I think it's a super accessible way to get people interested in hunting. And, it's not, especially people that are kind of on the fence about it, where, you have that social aspect. It's easy. It's a lot less expensive to get into, I feel. And then I think people have a lot less of an attachment to doves and ducks and this and that and the other than they do to, say, deer and bear. There's a lot less of an emotional aspect to it. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's kind of crazy to me, because every life has a value, in my opinion, whether that's a sparrow or a bear or a mountain lion or a wolf. They all have value to me, and one species, in my opinion, is never going to be more important than the other. And I think that's kind of where we run into this, especially with predators, Sam. I mean, my God, you've seen it on your page. I see it anytime I throw up a picture of a wolf or a mountain lion or a bear.
Mm-hmm.
People flip out. Well, they're no more important than a white-tailed buck to me. And I believe that humans are here to manage wildlife. People say, no, let nature take its course. Well, that only works in a world that's not overpopulated, like the world that we live in. I mean, you live in LA, you see it every day. Living country in the city. I mean, and I live just outside of Dallas, so I'm no stranger to a major metropolitan area either. But that doesn't work. Nature can't take its course anymore because there are so many people in this world. So, we have to manage it, just like Teddy Roosevelt, kind of was the grandfather of that philosophy, over 100 years ago. It's still true today, even more so because we've got so many more people. So our wildlife is confined to smaller areas, and we have to be responsible in the way that we manage them. And that's, that includes wolves, which you were just in Idaho. People don't know this because Idaho Fish and Game doesn't like to talk about it, but they shoot wolves out of helicopters and leave them there.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an absolute fact that they do that. They don't, like I said, they don't like the anti-hunting public to get a hold of that info, but at the same time, they know what pays the conservation bills, and that's elk tags in Idaho. It's not wolves. So, something's got to fund conservation, and if it means we have to kill some wolves out of helicopters, by God, then that's what we're going to do. So I wish more states would kind of adopt that philosophy, but
and it's not like they're trying to just destroy this wolf population. It's
no.
Just to make that clear, this is not like, okay, there's a few wolves and we just don't like them, so we're going to get rid of the wolves here. Yeah, no. This is like wolves were reintroduced, and they have, whatever was keeping the other species, because these are different species of wolves and were originally in the Rocky Mountain areas.
My God, that's a total other screw up on the U.S. fish pond.
I won't even get into that because that's a whole different podcast. But whatever was keeping that population of wolves in check, whether it was geographical or some sort of predator or whatever that relationship with nature was that was keeping them in check, is not in place anymore.
No.
And the wolf populations have exploded. There's, every time I see that, I've mentioned it before, every time I see that stupid video, it goes around on Facebook every now and again. It's one of those like, oh, isn't nature beautiful? Wolves were
the Yellowstone video of the making, and how they say, oh, the beavers are back and now everything's better. No, that's baloney. There's not a Shirus moose left in Yellowstone. It's a load of crap, propaganda put out there by people that blindly send money to PETA and the Humane Society, and it's ridiculous. It absolutely is. But going back to what you said, I don't want to eradicate wolves. Wolves they're awesome.
Yeah,
they might be the coolest predator we have in North America, but elk, deer, moose, that is what is funding wildlife conservation, and these idiots who can't fathom that don't realize that even if they just want to eat their granola and take a walk through a national park, hey, that's still funded by hunters and anglers. So
I heard it phrased really well. I can't remember if it was another podcast or just a conversation I was having with someone, but I heard it phrased very well, where you look at it and there's two types of people who love animals. There's a lot of people who love the individual animal, that a specific animal, they're passionate about each and every individual creature. And that's awesome for them.
You mean like wolf's my spirit animal?
Well, like they look at it, it's not even so much like wolf being my spirit animal. It's like that wolf. Like I'm passionate about that specific wolf.
Yeah.
But then you look at people like hunters, and yeah, we're passionate about animals. And I think it helps people understand the whole dichotomy of, yeah, we're passionate about animals, but we love to hunt them. It's that we're not necessarily passionate about, maybe we're passionate about the individual animal we're pursuing, but not so much the individual animal. We're passionate about the species.
Mm-hmm.
Elk as a species is what I'm passionate about. Not necessarily this one specific cow elk. It's like,
right.
I understand that, you know what? To balance out these herds, a certain amount of cow elk each year need to die. Same with any population, and does, or, to balance out just the balance of nature in general. A certain amount of wolves need to die each year. All of this stuff.
Yeah. But you know how we have, in the South, we all have deer leases. Mm-hmm. Because especially in Texas, our state is very different. It's 90% privately owned. So we don't have these vast national forests and these state, parks that people can hunt at. There's some. It's very limited though. But so we all have deer leases, and it could be 100 acres. It could be 500. It could be 1,000. Mine's 940. And we try to kill there's 4 bow hunters, myself and 3 other guys on there, and we try to kill 12 does every year. And the only reason is, we feed our families with it, but at the end of the day, we give a couple of those deer away because we can't eat that much venison. But we still need to keep those numbers in check for the overall vitality of the whitetail herd, and so that they don't, overbrowse their resources. So it's all part of it, It's but I will tell you this, Sam. Going back to what you were talking about, hunters' love for wildlife, that mule deer hunt I was on in New Mexico, the coolest part of it, and I didn't have an elk tag. I didn't draw one. I tried, failed, wasn't lucky enough. But I drew a mule deer tag. But the coolest thing was I was 40 yards from a massive 6x6 bull elk with all of his cows, sitting there bugling, chasing his cows around, and I watched him for 30 minutes, 40 yards from him, and they never knew I was there. That, to me, was the coolest part. It had nothing to do with killing or anything like that. It was just being there in that moment with that species that, like you said, that we love. So I think that's lost on people who don't hunt is those experiences stand out a lot of times more so than the kill.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of that New Mexico elk hunt, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is a unit where I have a lot of history there.
Mule deer hunt, I guess.
That's okay. That's okay because I have actually hunted elk there 2 times previously. So I always put in New Mexico. They don't have preference points. You can't buy over the tag. You can't buy tags over the counter. So you have to draw. And so I put in for the same unit as my first choice, and I do archery elk. And then if I don't get drawn for that, I'll try mule deer. And so 4 years ago, I went on my first ever elk hunt. Might have been 5 years ago. Anyway, it rained every day. It was miserable. I missed an elk at 30 yards with my bow, and was just, I had to leave. I had to get off the mountain a day earlier than I was expected to. I think it was supposed to be a 7-day hunt, and my feet just got so bad just because it rained so much. Waterproof boots are great, Gore-Tex, but if you're walking in 4 or 5 inches of water with every step, you're going to get wet eventually. And,
they can only do so much.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I experienced it again this year, but yeah, so I missed that elk. Next year I put in with 2 buddies. My wife wasn't thrilled about me going in solo, for that long, the year before. And she was like, please don't do that again. You have kids now, this, that, and the other. So 2 buddies went with me, and 2 out of the 3 of us shot our first elk on that trip. So that was pretty cool. And then this year, last year I didn't draw, struck out, and then this year got the mule deer tag, and we camped at 11,500 feet, which is right there at the base of this lake, beautiful lake up there in north central New Mexico, and that's when the snow hit, and it was miserable. The first 16 hours of the trip in our tents, just in my Kafaru sleeping bag, try not to freeze my tail off. So that was an eye opener. Like we said, going back to the weather, we knew it was supposed to rain a little bit. Didn't know we were going to be caught in like a blizzard situation. And it pretty much rained, sleeted, or snowed for the next 48 hours. I caught a little break in the weather, and that's when I dropped down. Here's the cool thing though. I dropped down about 1,500 feet in elevation, and there was no snow on the ground. And I found out later in the day, the guys who stayed at camp got sleeted on all day. I didn't even get rain, nothing, and I was only 2 miles from them. But that 1,500 feet was a big factor, and I was high and dry. So mountains they're crazy and unpredictable. I think that's why a lot of people are so drawn to them. Just that vast beauty, but it can make you feel pretty small pretty quick.
I think sometimes we need to be taken down a few notches.
Yeah, and they do that.
Oh yes,
They will do that.
I have so learned. You can get humbled really quick, but it also, when you do have successes, you have no doubt. No one can take that away from you, because you have no doubt that you work your butt off for them.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. The elk I shot there in 2015 was, and is to this day, probably my greatest achievement. The one that I'm most proud of as a hunter, to go into public land, call in a bull elk. Here's a guy from Texas. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Elk hunting, you know. I just knew I liked elk. I wanted to hunt them with a bow and arrow. So listen to some DVDs, watch some YouTubes, learn how to call a little bit, and just go out there and do it. And to fail, fall flat on my face the year before, miss, and have to leave early, and just a disaster. And then you have that opportunity at redemption and make the most of it. And the meals, you've seen my Instagram. I love to cook. That's part of the story for me. Is a big part of it is having people over on Sunday to watch football and having this smorgasbord of wild game that I've taken over the last 6 months or whatever. And a lot of them don't hunt, and that's the cool thing is that's their only connection with wild game. If they weren't coming over, they'd probably never eat it.
Mm-hmm.
But back to that mule deer hunt. So this year we decided it was a 5-day hunt, and this snow came in, and this is a little more info than probably you need, but there were supposed to be 17 guys on this trip. This is a backpacking trip that my dad and his buddies set up with the church I grew up in 31 years ago. So this was the 31st annual trip.
Oh, wow.
And once he turned 21, they allow their sons to start going. So I started going 15 years ago. And that's how I knew this unit even before I was big game hunting. There had been grouse hunting and fly fishing and just camping and backpacking. But never eating granola. So just, I was eating beef jerky. But yeah, so 17 guys, only 5 of us went up. 5 of us went up a day early. The rest were flying out of the Dallas area or driving up the next day. We're going to hike in. And we had to call them on a satellite phone and say, listen, guys, if you get up here, it's not going to be pleasant. It's really going to be an uncomfortable experience. And half of these guys are 70. My dad, he's 67. His buddies are between that and 75. And the trail hiking in was the first 4 miles, just rain, just every step, 3-4 inches of water you're stepping in. Then the last 3.5 miles, just snow. And it went from bad to worse. We told them, I think this year's trip is canceled, so we're going to try to get off the mountain because 2 of the guys with us were in their 70s. We said, we got to get these guys off the mountain. So anyway, we were hiking out, and there was this one meadow, which mule deer love dark timber, and they love to come out of that dark timber and feed in meadows, with aspens, basically the quakies. They get a little cover with the aspens. They graze there, but they still feel close enough to that dark timber that they can, have that security blanket. And I told my buddy when we were walking in, I said, this looks like a good place for a nice mule deer buck to be hanging out. I said, everything I know about mule deer, I said, this is the spot they're going to be. But it was 5 miles from base camp, so it wasn't like I was walking there in the rain every day, looking for them. So on the way out, I was able to hunt about 8 hours out of the whole trip, and then on the way out, got the pinos out as we're walking through that meadow, and sure enough, there was 2 bucks in those aspens. Yeah, it was like God was like, here you go. This is where mule deer are supposed to be, and there they are. Go kill one. And it was a muzzleloader hunt. So I was just praying that when if I was able to get close enough to it, that the gun would go off. It's been rained on for 2 days.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Yeah, but little tip, just put you can use a balloon or I had electrical tape, just cover the end of your barrel with that, and it'll keep your powder dry. So anyway, belly crawl up to this thing, get within 60 yards. My buddy is filming. I'm going to put that on our social stuff later, but man, it all just worked out. I got within 60 yards of him. The wind was right, and shot him just kneeling from, just on a knee, and he ran 60 yards and fell over. And so the fat lady was putting on her dress. She was about to take the stage, but it worked out. And here's the coolest thing. These horses were packing out. So we had enough gear for 17 guys. You can imagine. We had to have horses come get the gear. It was too much for all of us to carry out. So here come the horses 20 minutes later, and I was able to load up that mule deer on the horses and not have to pack it out myself. So it worked out. It was perfect timing. And sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, I guess,
Hey, you know what though? You may have gotten quite a bit of luck, but there was definitely plenty of skill involved in that too. You can't. Sometimes it's luck finding them, but you still got to take them afterwards.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, that was my first public land mule deer, so pretty excited about that. First, let's see, I think I only killed whitetail with a muzzleloader, so that was something exciting as well. Because I don't know, something about black powder. It's kind of nostalgic for me, just to kind of think about the way guys used to do it, the early, frontiersmen and stuff. So I do like that. It's kind of a throwback weapon, in my opinion.
I've always, to some extent, that's why, I'm using a compound bow and stuff, but that's why I love archery hunting too, it's more of a connection, I feel like, with that. And, I was actually talking with two folks. I was talking with Cody Rich, and then I was also talking with a buddy of mine, the guy who actually helped, who came in and packed me out after my hunt, Clayton Markser, known as the Adventure Cowboy on Instagram, and they're both huge proponents of like vintage Western firearms, and they both hunt with old Sharps rifles every now and again. And Cody, I know, took an elk with his vintage Sharps.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, it's such a cool thing. They actually did a podcast episode together on Cody's podcast where they talk about that and talk about hunting with vintage rifles. And it's a connection. It's fun because it's more of a challenge for one, but it's like you said, it's that connection with hunting has such a rich history, and it just ties you in with that so much more than not taking anything away from anyone that hunts with a modern rifle, because I will.
Oh, I do it all the time.
Yeah, I will gladly go do that. But yeah, there's just something about taking on that extra challenge and connecting with a whole heritage and history. And I mean, heck, even when I doubt I'll ever take this thing out hunting because it weighs 800 pounds. But, I've got an old M1 Garand, 1939 M1 Garand rifle that I love. And every time I take that thing out to the range, it's just, I don't know exactly where that rifle's been, but it's old enough that I know it's been through several wars. I mean, you can just feel every time I squeeze that trigger, I can just feel the history, coursing through it. Like, it's just...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So much. Like, I get so excited about that kind of stuff.
That's how I feel. I've got my grandfather's Browning A5. I think it was made in the 60s. I don't remember the serial number, but I looked it up one time. And he used to go waterfowling on the Katy Prairie down around Houston, Texas, and that was, back in the day, a lot of rice fields there, and just was a mecca for ducks and geese. And I just think about that. I don't shoot it much because I kind of treat it like a save queen now, just because I kind of want to protect it. But sometimes I just get it out and hold it just to think about, those hunts and those mornings in the blind that gun and my grandfather have seen together. So yeah, I love that nostalgic aspect of it. But I will tell you though, I'm not very confident with this muzzleloader out past 100 yards. Mm-hmm. Probably would shoot something at 150. Doubt I'd shoot anything at 200. And so we see these deer, these mule deer in the aspens that, probably saw them. They were 500, 600 yards away. Probably I could have easily got to 300 yards and boom, just shot them with the rifle if that's what I was hunting with. The muzzleloader, it's like in between archery and rifle hunting. And so my buddy's like, he's looking at me we're at 200 yards. He's like, "You gonna shoot?" I was like, "No, I gotta get closer. And so that's when I started belly crawling, and the grass was pretty thick in this meadow, so I had cover. I was just crawling along, and finally I was like, I could get right up on these things. They don't know I'm here. And so at 60 yards, I was like, without a rest, I was like, okay, I feel comfortable here, and probably could have got within 40 if I wanted to. But yeah, it was that's the thrill for me is getting in close, like you said, with archery or whether it's muzzleloader. It's it just adds that element of skill really is what it is. I think first and foremost, is you have to know how to, move through the forest or the woods, crawl on your belly, whatever it is. You've got to if you're sitting in a tree stand, you've got to be able to draw undetected. You've got to be able to hold, once you've come to full draw. You might have to hold it for 60 seconds or longer. And all that stuff isn't things, it's not stuff you can just learn overnight. It all comes through experience. So, and a lot of times failure, a lot of times it's failure that teaches you, God, I got to practice, man. I blew that deal. And then you're kicking yourself like I did with that elk for a whole year. All I thought about was I missed an elk at 30 yards. How could I do that? God, Cable, you suck. So and then I practiced a lot more for the next year, and it paid off. So,
well, with all the hunters I've talked to, I think every single one of them would agree that you learn infinitely more from your failures than you do your successes. I mean, that's just the way of the world with anything. You will always learn more from your failures than your successes.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It's absolutely true in the great outdoors. And that's the cool thing about this industry, Sam, is, we all have our own personal failures, but we all learn so much from other people's failures or successes. Been doing this podcast for 8 years, and you've been doing yours. You've got 40 episodes, which is awesome, brother. But we both talked to all these people just like you and I. Some of them have more experience, some of them have less experience. But the day that you stop trying to learn, or from your own experiences or someone else's, is the day that you're set up for failure. Because Jim Shockey, whoever, they still learn every day. And that's the cool thing about it, I think, is it's not like a lot of things, because you never know what's going to happen in the outdoors. But every experience sticks with you, and as long as you build on that the next time, you're going to increase your odds for success. I'm not saying you're going to have success, but your odds are going to be better.
And that's part of the reason why I posted up. I went back and forth debating how much I wanted to post about my elk hunt, and it kept coming back.
I got to ask you, were you solo on that hunt?
I was solo. Going in.
That's ballsy, bro.
I would have liked to have someone, a buddy or something, go with me.
Did you have a satellite phone?
I had a DeLorme inReach that
okay.
let me do the texting.
Yeah.
That was absolutely a lifesaver. Just being able to, get some advice from folks when I needed it, and then obviously be able to call in my good buddy and have him bring in the, well, I guess come in as the cavalry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I was only asking because I've done that solo trip, and it's paramount that you have some way to, that stuff happens sometimes, can't predict it. And it's so important that if you do go into the backcountry on your own, you have something, whether it's a sat phone or the DeLorme like you had. So I'm glad you weren't out there basically on an island by yourself, especially with the injuries that you incurred.
Yeah. It's important to have that.
But but talk about that. I know you said you were struggling internally with what to post about your elk hunt. And I think that the best thing we can do is be transparent. There's some people on a lot of the hunting shows on Outdoor Channel and Sportsman Channel, I don't think that's the case. I think they never miss, right?
Yeah.
Or they always have a successful hunt. And the ones that they don't, a lot of times they don't show you. So I certainly enjoyed seeing, even though it was a failure at the end of the day as far as punching a tag is concerned, that doesn't mean the experience. It was far from a failure.
And I caught some grief from some stupid people online about that post, and most of it was pretty obvious they didn't understand the situation or what I was trying to do. And really, it's like, I'm not trying to revel in the fact that I went in unprepared and wasn't able to, I'm not trying to say that. One, I did go in prepared. I went in fully prepared, but I'm not posting to brag.
But how do you know until you do it?
Exactly. I mean,
Right.
I should say as prepared as I could have been in the situation.
Sure. But it's asinine. People want to say, "Oh, you weren't prepared." Well, dude, this is my first time into the backcountry solo. I don't see you doing it, So get off my ass because I'm out there living it and trying to do it, right?
Yeah.
So I might fail, but I'm there.
Yeah, and I'm not, like I said, I wasn't posting to try and like brag about this situation. I just made it clear. One, I had a lot of people asking about what happened, and that was the easiest, most concise way to share with a few hundred people messaging me. And two, yeah, there were mistakes I made and things I learned, and as we were talking about, I want to be 100% transparent. I want people to learn from what happened to me, and the choices I made, and whether good or bad or whatever they were. I want that to be a valuable lesson, because that's how you turn what could be considered a failure into a success. Is one, if I learn from it, and two, if I use that as an example for other people that may be considering their first trip into the backcountry, or even talking with some of my experienced hunter friends who they're like, you know what? I do a lot of solo hunting and I tend to get overconfident, and stuff can, like you said, stuff can happen that you can't plan for. All we know, you could be in your tent and a friggin' tree could fall on you. Like, it's happened before. It's not an unheard of thing when you're in thick timber. That's not something you can plan for. And if, you break a leg and you just are thinking like, oh, I'm going to be fine on this solo hunt by myself, and you just have no ability to reach out to someone, you've got a long freaking crawl through, knee-deep snow to get your butt out of there.
Oh, you're probably dead, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Sadly. But, I mean, if you got a broken leg and you're crawling out miles and miles in the snow, you're probably not going to make it.
You could be the toughest dude out there, and, you break a leg, you do this, you do that. Whatever you do, it's just not a good situation. So I wanted to make sure people, whoever it was, were able to learn from my situation. So I put it out there. And you know what? I'm more than happy with my choice to do so. I am proud of the challenge that I took on. I'd like to think that that's not something everybody's going to do for their first hunt. And typically from the reactions I got when I was telling people what I was planning on doing, a lot of them thought that is definitely not something.
They're a little skeptical, huh?
I think it was somewhere in between skeptical and impressed. I got a lot of reactions like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, man, it's not I'm not going to say it's a scary undertaking, but it's definitely something that weighs heavy on your mind as you're preparing for that adventure,
Oh, without a doubt.
Is this the safest thing to do? What if I do shoot an elk? How the hell am I going to get it out of here? Well, and I've had this conversation with Aaron Snyder, Gritty Bowman. It's like, we all want to be this hardcore guy that's going to pack out an elk 8 miles on our back and make 4 trips. But at the end of the day, why do you want to kill yourself doing that? If you have a satellite phone and you got, your buddy that came and helped you out, and if you've got a horse that you can say, hey, I got an elk down, can you come help me? Well, why wouldn't you do that? So I always say hunt smarter, not harder. So
absolutely. So tell me a little bit about Lone Star Outdoor Show. How'd we talked a little bit about it before we started recording, but how'd that come about?
Yeah, so I my first job in radio after I got married, we moved from the Dallas area to like East Texas, a small town called Texarkana, and I was doing everything. I wanted to do sports talk radio, but everybody wanted to do that. And so I had to move to a small town to do it, and I got there and my boss was like, "Yeah, you got to host this weekly hunting and fishing talk show." And I was like, "Okay, cool." At that time I'd been hunting 6-7 years and I'd been fishing my whole life. And I was like, that'll be fun. I like hunting and fishing. And so just started this once a week. It was called the Piney Woods Outdoor Show. I don't know if 2 people listen to it every week. I really don't. But I had fun doing it, and you could call. Going back to the outdoor industry, it's just made up of good people, man. And so you could call Ted Nugent's assistant and say, "Hey, can we get Ted on the show?" Or back then, you could call Duck Dynasty or Duck Commander headquarters. Kay would still answer the phone. Be like, "Hey, could I talk to Phil? Phil's duck hunting. He'll be back at noon. If you want to call back at noon. Hello, this is Phil Robertson. And you could do that. And so I was like, God, this is awesome. I love the people in the outdoor industry. And then Obama got elected, and I'm not saying it's his fault that we had the economy crash, but that's what happened. And I got laid off, and so we moved back to Dallas. And I was like, well, hell, I don't know what I'm going to do. I really liked that hunting and fishing show though, and so kind of just was like, you know what? I'll see if I can start my own. And that was 8 years ago. You're coming up on episode 40, and I will have episode 400 this week. So it's been one a week for almost 8 years, and I never get tired of it. That's the cool thing, is there's so many. Whether it's hunting or fishing, I'd say our show is probably 2/3 hunting content and 1/3 fishing, and there's always something interesting. Whether it's visiting with someone, a famous outdoorsman or an outdoor writer, or what I really like, Sam, is just having your average Joe, your average guy that has something crazy happen to him in the outdoors. Whether he lucks into a 200-inch buck, or maybe he gets mauled by a grizzly bear and survived. Those are kind of. Last week we had on a guy that got bit by a rattlesnake, and the whole point of it was, what happened? What should you do? What did the doctors tell him to do? What did he do right, and what did he do wrong after he got bit? Because it was like 10 o'clock at night. He was by himself. Just stepped out on his porch to watch a lightning storm, and got tagged by a baby rattlesnake. And so I just try to keep it interesting. So kind of run on a platform that's, I want it to be informative, entertaining, and conservation driven. So those are kind of 3 things that I always think about. Would someone like this for one of those 3 reasons? And I know you like country music, so that's a big part of our show as well. We play like Texas country, outlaw country, coming in and out of all of our commercial breaks, and from time to time we'll have if they like to hunt, we'll get a country artist on and play a song off the record, and talk about how their hunting season was.
Well, I think country music's initially kind of how we ended up talking. I want to say, I think I saw you were posting up your weekly non-pop country playlist.
Yeah.
And
no skinny jeans, no mohawks. It's no broke country. It's just good old boys singing real country music the way Hank intended it. So
there you go. Yeah, I think I reached out and I was like, oh, I like this. You should check out. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I think I shot over Luke Combs.
Oh yeah. He's good. He's good stuff.
But yeah, no, that's I definitely appreciated that, and I'll admit, I enjoy all different types of country, and it all depends on my mood.
Right.
I tend to enjoy a little more of the grungy southern rock and the outlaw country and stuff like that. But every so often I do. I'm a beach kid, so I like to throw on some Jake Owen, and while I got the top off the Jeep and I'm driving down Pacific Coast Highway. But
yeah. Well, he likes the outdoors, so he's not.
Oh, yeah.
He's not all that bad. But yeah. What was I gonna? Whiskey Myers. That's one you should check out if you haven't yet. You like the grungy southern rock. They're an East Texas band that kind of has that Leonard Skinner vibe, but still a little country. Yeah, I should definitely check them out. And they all like to hunt and fish too. So good dudes.
I like it. So I know I'm about to ask you to do the impossible here, but do you have any particular favorite episodes that you've recorded in these past 8 years that really stick out to you?
Oh man. Let me think about that. Okay, there's one with Jeff Foxworthy where he's been on the show a couple times, but if they go to our website, you can just use the search tab and type in Foxworthy or whatever. But he gives us the best deer camp prank that he ever played, and I'm not kidding you. It was something with a gorilla suit and a guy that was scared of the dark, and it had me rolling laughing. So that's one of my favorites. I'm trying to think. Bo Jackson Bo knows baseball, Bo knows football, Bo knows bow hunting, and
No way.
Oh yeah, yeah. Big archery guy. Loves to sit in his. He's got a little. He's got a bow press and kind of works on his all his arrows and stuff, and kind of I think it's in his garage or basement. But he kind of goes in there and gets away from his wife and kids and does his bow hunting. I think he likes working on his bow as much as he likes bow hunting. But that was cool.
That's crazy. I mean, we're about the same age, and so we grew up like he was sports when we grew up,
Oh, he was Superman, dude. He was, Nike grabbed him up and it was all. I remember those. Remember that? I don't remember if it was a baseball card or football card because it was kind of a mixed message. But he's got his shoulder pads on, and he's got the bat over his shoulder.
Yeah, I think I had. It's probably sitting in a box.
Yeah.
In my parents' warehouse somewhere.
It's probably a poster too.
Oh yeah, I think I had like either the card or the poster or something.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's probably the thing's probably destroyed at this point. But yeah, no, I absolutely. That's crazy.
But what a bat! I mean, the guy could snap a bat over his knee like it was a twig, and he never worked out a day in his life. He was just built like a Greek statue. I mean, just incredible. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun. Aaron Lewis, we're about the same age, so I don't know if you listened to Stained when you were in high school, but I sure did. And I was listening to a lot of rock when I was younger, more country now, and still like the rock. But he kind of transitioned later on in life to country music, and he's not afraid to tell you his political views either. Not a big Hillary fan, and so we had a good discussion on gun control and stuff. That one kind of stands out, but those are three that just off the top of my head I've enjoyed in recent memory anyway.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure to look those up, and I'll post them up on the show notes page. That'll be livingcountryinthecity.com/40. So awesome. Send some people over there to check that out. So if people want to tune in to the Lone Star Outdoor Show, what's a few ways they could do that?
Well, we have about 30 radio stations in Texas that broadcast it every weekend on Saturday morning, and those you can just find that network on our website. But probably the best, easiest way is just to kind of listen to it conveniently on your own time is just on iTunes, Stitcher, or our website. It's free to download, just like your podcast. So those are probably the best places to check out the show. And also, if you listen to the podcast, it's kind of it's an extended version. So a lot of times our podcast can be an hour and a half, but the radio show has to be trimmed down to an hour, so you get more content actually on the podcast, and it's usually probably 3 to 4 guests, just kind of depending on how the conversation goes, but try to have a couple different topics every week. And we try to keep the fishermen, we try to keep them interested as well, because they're just as much a part of the outdoors and this community as hunting is. So try to have something for everybody.
No, I definitely, when I initially started listening to your show, it kind of took me a second because it's a little bit different format because it's formatted more like a radio show than a lot of podcasts. And I think that's one of the cool things about it and gives you variety is you'll have, a few guests on there. And so, you can get, if you're only listening, on your way to work or whatever, you got a 20-minute or a half an hour car ride into work, you can get a couple of guests, and then on the way home, you can pick it up again really easily versus, sometimes these podcasts, you listen to like Joe Rogan or something, that's 3 hours, and that's like a several day commitment for me. Me
too.
By the time I get about halfway through, I've forgotten what we were talking about the day prior. So
yeah. Well, and if you don't mind, I'll tell you what's on this week's show because I think it's something you like to hunt the backcountry, so this is something you might be interested in as well, and probably your listeners. We have Lan Tani of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers coming on, and we're going to talk about Secretary Zinke, of our Interior Department, appointed by Trump. How is he doing? How is the Trump administration doing protecting our interest as backcountry hunters and anglers? And then after that, we're going to have on Secretary Zinke. So
no, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so we're going to get both sides of it. I did already tape the interview with Secretary Zinke, and this was funny. He called. I told him what about the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers press release on this leaked. If people don't know about it, there was a leaked document coming from the Interior, Secretary's office, and kind of outlined some things about that review he put on our monuments that backcountry hunters and anglers didn't like it, to say the least, and I don't think we should. But Secretary Zinke called it fake news. So just telling you that maybe the two sides weren't really in agreement on this whole deal. It should be an interesting listen anyway for anyone that's concerned about our public lands and those backcountry wilderness areas that you and I hold so dear.
Absolutely. I'm a huge supporter of backcountry hunters and anglers. As far as organizations go, there's a ton that I support. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Mule Deer Foundation. There's a bunch of different groups that I am a huge advocate for. But when it comes down to it, backcountry hunters and anglers to me is fighting on one of the most important fronts, if not the most important front that we got, and that is our public lands. If we can save all the animals we want, but what's the point if all our lands are getting sold off and developed? It's just,
oh yeah,
the habitat's going to get smaller and smaller, the populations are going to get more and more crowded, and with everyone so anti-hunting often, it's going to require more management and cost more money, and oh gosh, it's just a vicious circle.
Yeah, and for a flatlander like myself, from Texas, the mountains have been a part of me for about 15 years, and my dad and his buddies passed that on to me, and my greatest fear is I won't be able to pass it on to my 4-year-old son. It's a part of my soul every year. It's like I go there, and whether it's once a year or 5 times a year, every time I go, it's like I'm revitalized. And that's the weird thing about it, man. These mountains, they kick your ass. They beat you down. They're unforgiving. But every time I leave, my soul is revitalized. I'm ready to take on the next challenge. And it's kind of like it's a weird paradox to have your butt whipped nonstop for however long you're up there, and you're beat physically and emotionally. But at the end of the day, you walk away, and it's like, I'm so sore, but that was probably the most fun I'm going to have until the next time I'm back here.
It feels like you're leaving home almost,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. New Mexico it's like my second home. I like Colorado too. I'd love to hunt Idaho and the other western states. I put in, I'm trying to draw on building preference points in the ones that Wyoming, if people haven't, I recommend buy your preference points in these states where you can.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, like, my goal is to get on a rotation where I've got enough points built up, and I'm still applying in other states to where every year I'm hunting elk in a trophy unit. That's my goal. I'm not there yet, but if you get on that system where you got 5 states and you can burn your preference points in one every fall, then that's when you have it made.
Yep. All right, y'all. Let's pause for a minute to hear a quick word from one of my partners. All right, y'all, so we know that there's countless box club offers out there catering to all different kinds of people and interests, from fishing to shaving, exercising, skincare, and whiskey. Just about anything you could think of. But none of them ever really appealed to me until I came across a newcomer to the arena, Bowhunter Box Club. Bowhunter Box Club is the only subscription box club service out there geared specifically for bow hunters. And who doesn't love getting a box packed full of awesome new bow hunting gear delivered directly to their doorstep every month? Now, here's the deal. Each month, they'll deliver a box filled with around $60 to $70 worth of awesome new products and gear for you to try out. Previous boxes have included gear such as broadheads, bino adapters, stands, gear hoists, and bow slings from companies like Vortex, Phone Scope, and Boning. This is quality gear that you've either been wanting to try out or really didn't know you needed. Now, you can choose from a bunch of different subscription plans that'll fit your budget. You can go month to month or save even more by selecting a long-term prepaid subscription. On top of that, for a small annual fee, you can join their VIP Pass-Through Club. Pass-Through Club members get exclusive access to buy discounted bow hunting gear that won't fit in the monthly box. What's even better is you're entered into monthly giveaways for incredible bow hunting gear like a Matthews bow or a Vortex spotting scope package. They're even giving away hunts. Now, the best part is you can get 10% off your first month of any subscription plan by using code COUNTRY10. And you can get $10 off the VIP Pass-Through Club membership by using code COUNTRYVIP. Get both of those codes and more discounts from awesome outdoor companies by visiting my partners page at livingcountryinthecity.com/partners. So, talking about Texas a little bit, we talked about it a little bit earlier is, it's 90% private land. You guys don't
98.
98.
Don't shortchange us. We don't have any public land, man.
Holy moly. I definitely I don't know what it is about literally going from 90% to 98%, but that jump seems so much bigger than going from 50 to 90 almost.
Well, Texas is massive, just like California. Mm-hmm. It's a huge state. So 2% is probably still a nice chunk, but at the end of the day, the public hunting opportunity for big game is just terrible here. It really is. I think we have 2 tags for desert bighorns that the state, it's a draw. Think about that. Every Texas outdoorsman is applying for 2 tags for desert bighorn. I think there's 5 antelope tags. It's just our public hunting is not good. So that's why we all have deer leases and duck leases, and it's expensive to hunt here. To be honest with you. If you want a deer lease within 2 hours of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you live in the Metroplex, you're going to pay $4,000 probably dollars per hunter for the season, and could be more, could be $5,000. If you want to go to South Texas and have a chance to shoot a 180-inch whitetail, you're looking at $12,000 per person, per gun for the season. So it isn't cheap. That's why public land hunting for me is God, I can go to New Mexico and have an elk tag if I draw for $600 or whatever, and go over the counter in Colorado for $500, and it's a lot cheaper, more affordable option, and plus you get to be in the mountains. But yeah, I'm a sucker. I still have a deer lease, pay for it every year, and if you want to hunt whitetail, that's basically you either have to have your own land, your family does, or you have to lease it. So it is what it is. But yeah, we have a lot of whitetail deer, that's for sure. Some fine genetics, and Texas is so big. We have kind of different subspecies. They're all whitetail, but the hill country deer are small bodied. They weigh 100 pounds on a good day. And you go down to South Texas, down past San Antonio, and you run into 200-pound bucks. It might be 200 inches too. They're just giant deer, more like Midwest deer. And it's because they have a high protein diet. They eat mesquite beans. Is what biologists have told me is why they get so big bodied and grow such big racks. So whitetail is king in Texas, though, man. We like our whitetail deer and our largemouth bass. Those are probably the 2 things that drive the outdoors in our state. Not probably, without a doubt, more so than anything else.
Well, Texas is interesting as well, though. Even with the other big game hunting, obviously, like you said, when you can find a place to do it is most of these species are pretty much year round because they're classified as exotics, right?
Oh yeah. We have, and I'll tell you, so in my studio, some of the exotics I have in here that I'm looking at right now: axis deer, black buck, scimitar, horned oryx, gemsbuck, and I think that's it in here. But yeah, and there's an aoudad in here.
I am so obsessed with aoudad. I found out about him this year.
Dude, you gotta come.
Dude, I found out too late to put in for a New Mexico hunt or anything, but the second I saw one of those, I can't even remember. Somebody on the podcast mentioned it to me, and I was like, oh, what is that? And I looked it up, and I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah. Oh, they're awesome. Yeah, and interesting history. A lot of these species were basically, the cattle industry went in the crapper in about the 50s and 60s for a little while, and so all these ranchers, these big ranches in Texas, were like, well, how do we make a living? How do we supplement our income just to get by? And so they started putting these exotics on ranches. The first 2 I'm aware of were black buck and axis deer on the Wyo Ranch in the Texas Hill Country, and then nilgai down in South Texas. And then it just kind of evolved from there. But going back to the aoudad, so this is a sheep that's native to the Barbary Coast of Africa. And World War II soldiers were stationed there, American soldiers, and they saw these animals. And so the way they got to Texas was after the war, some of these guys went back and captured some or bought some and brought them back. And I'm not kidding you, Sam. Now we have them free ranging in the hill country. We have them free ranging in West Texas, free ranging in parts of New Mexico, and they inhabit. I mean, just like bighorn sheep. Wherever the nastiest terrain is, that's where you're going to find these guys. and they're amazing animals. But it's like poor man's sheep hunting. You and I can afford to go probably hunt aoudad if we want to.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we draw a tag or you want to go pay an outfitter, you can go kill one or hunt one. They're not easy to kill. For probably $4,000, let's just say, on a good aoudad hunt, 5-day hunt, out fully guided, outfitted, the whole 9 yards. Whereas if you wanted to go hunt a bighorn sheep, you'd be at $40,000-$50,000.
Yeah.
So for the hardcore guy that wants to sheep hunt but hasn't drawn a tag and can't afford it, this is a good alternative, that's for sure.
Well, I'd never heard of black buck either until just now.
Oh yeah.
And I just looked one up, and I'm a little obsessed with these things now too. It's like a freaking pandelope.
Oh yeah, they're cool.
I've said this about other animals before on a previous podcast, but it looks like something that some like Japanese animator made up for a movie. It's like
right.
It's like I'm gonna take these two animals and then kind of make everything an extreme, and I'm gonna draw a cartoon of it, and that's kind of what it looks like to me, and it's the coolest. These things are awesome.
Oh yeah, they're cool little animals, and they're from India, actually, along with the axis deer. Some people call them a chatal, but axis deer is probably one of the favorite meals for Bengal tiger. That's probably their number one food source. But yeah, they kind of go hand in hand. If you've got a habitat where black buck will thrive, so will axis deer. And that's kind of why the hill country, it's pretty dry, rocky. Both of them just thrive there, and we've got them free ranging all over the place as well. The axis deer more so than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have a buddy of mine lives just outside of San Antonio, and he has every night at his deer feeder. It's in his backyard. He lives on 20 acres, doesn't hunt it, just likes to watch them. He's got usually 20 axis deer and 20 whitetail.
Oh, geez.
And it's a beautiful sight. But yeah, the axis deer, the venison, oh man, it's my second favorite after elk. It's better than whitetail.
Really?
That's kind of blasphemous, but yeah, it is better. Ask Jeremiah Doty.
Oh yeah, I've had him on the podcast before.
Yeah, I thought you had. Yeah.
Yeah, he lives about 20 minutes or half an hour from me.
Nice. But yeah, he's come to Texas and has killed an axis deer, and he'll tell you, man, it's about as good as it gets. But yeah, so we have this year-round hunting thing in Texas with all these exotics and some free ranging, a lot behind high fences. That's a whole other topic. But Texas, because it is privately owned, we do have a lot of high fence ranches, whether they're 500 acres or 5,000 or 50,000. It's more to keep unwanted people off, I think, than to keep the animals in, because a lot of these places, these animals don't even know there's a fence. Vast places. Hell, I was in, and I think that's kind of becoming more of a global thing. People want to go hunt red stag in New Zealand. Most of that's high fence now. I was in South Africa this summer. 30,000 acre high fence preserve. It's just, and that's to keep poachers out,
mm-hmm.
not really to keep the animals in. It's a management tool as well. I mean, you can really keep a better grasp, on the science behind all of your herds and their vitality and all that stuff.
Well, and that's something. This isn't like teeny little ranch canned pig hunt or something. Like, I feel like people say high fence and it can mean so many different things that it gets a bad connotation. Like, I really honestly, that's not something I would feel bad about if, when you're talking, like you said, like 50,000 acres or something, or.
Yeah. Well, and I've killed a deer. The smallest place I've hunted was 640 acres, I think. So I was hunting axis deer there. It's my buddy's ranch down there in the hill country. It took me 3 trips to kill an axis deer on that place. And it's 640 acres. You're thinking, you could throw a rock and probably kill one, right? No. These animals are still wild as hell. They're not just going to let you walk up to and shoot them. they want to live. Just they're wild animals. So the idea that it's a canned hunt, it's what you want to make it out to be. There are, and I think the Midwest probably has more of them. Small places, 50, 100-acre high fence places. Those kind of probably do give us more of a bad name. But no, these animals are reproducing naturally on these ranches, and they're exciting to hunt. They're different, and they just provide a lot of opportunity. And I will tell you, Sam, I break it down like this. So there's a guy, not me or you, but there's a guy out there. He's a businessman, and he's a slave to his job, and he makes a lot of money. But he makes a lot of money because he works his ass off, and he likes the outdoors and he likes to hunt, but he doesn't have the time to do it except for 1 weekend a year, maybe 2. And so that guy goes to a high fence ranch and he shoots some exotics, or he shoots a 200-inch whitetail. To me, I'm glad that guy's buying a hunting license.
Yep.
I'm glad that he's out there. At least he could go to the store and buy beef, or he could go kill it himself, even if it was behind a high fence. And so he's on our side at the end of the day. He's a hunter. He just does a little different. And, at the end of the day, I'm cool with that. High fence, low fence, no fence, hunt your way, whatever makes you happy. You're buying a hunting license. You're supporting conservation. You're buying ammo. You're putting into that Pittman-Robertson Act. Those dollars are going back into wildlife conservation across the board. And so as long as it's ethical, and we all know, that's kind of a gray area, but I think at the end of the day, when you pull the trigger, if what you're doing is ethical or not. And the places I've visited, high fences, I've never been in a situation where I thought, oh, this is unethical. This is a canned hunt. So as long as it doesn't, and it doesn't affect me if that guy goes and does that, I don't care. I'm glad he's eating venison instead of a steak. So
exactly.
That's kind of that's the analogy I give, because it doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect our listeners. What a rich businessman does on his free time. He could go to Cabo and just sit there and sip margaritas on the beach if he want. I'd rather him be hunting whitetail if that's his passion.
Without a doubt. I mean, there's a lot of people that decide, they want to put their reality and force other people into that, and it's just, we gotta understand people. Not everyone's the same. Not everyone comes from the same situations or same backgrounds or has the same opportunities. But as long as they're, like you said, being ethical, and that definitely differs from situation to situation. But as long as they're being ethical and they're supporting hunting, I'm okay with it. You do you, yeah. I'll do me. That's, not a bad life philosophy.
Yeah. I'd love for you to come to Texas and see one of these ranches and get a feel for what it's really like. It's some of them are pretty incredible. I mean, with all the African game that we have here now, and it's just like, wow. I've been to South Africa and I've seen some of the same stuff now in Texas. It's pretty crazy. But I'd love for you to come and draw your own conclusion.
Heck yeah. So speaking of that, say, someone like me or, someone from out of state was like looking at these animals like, holy crap, I want to go chase one of these axis deer, black buck or outad. What's like, how do you go about that? Like, what's kind of the best place to start for someone out of state that might want to come in and hunt one of these exotics or even just hunt Texas in general?
Yeah. Well, we're pretty friendly to out-of-state hunters as far as like hunting license and stuff goes. We don't gouge you. Like, so my whitetail lease is actually on just across the border in Oklahoma. And dude, it's like they hate out-of-state hunters. They charge $280 for archery. If you want to hunt black powder, $280, and if you want a rifle hunt, $280. That's not a deal. I mean, that's almost a deal breaker. But no, we're pretty friendly. I don't know what it would cost, but I think if you just wanted to come hunt whitetail or something, you could probably do it for like $150 for like a 5-day hunting license. Exotics, I think you do actually have to have a hunting license, but it's not like we put tags on them and you can hunt them year round. You can hunt them at night if you want to. I don't, but some people do. We hunt hogs year round, obviously. That's another great thing about Texas being such a target-rich environment. I know you guys have them in Cali, but I think you'll actually have tags for them. You
can get, I mean, we have tags for them, but it's so stinking cheap. I can't even remember how much it is, but it's almost, you're not, it's kind of a token payment almost, if you will.
Really? Yeah.
That's the one thing that they don't charge us too much for.
Right, right. But yeah, so as far as resources goes, I mean, people could email me, LoneStarOutdoorsShow@gmail.com, if they have a specific animal they want to hunt. I could point you in the right direction. 10 different ranches, just kind of whatever you're looking for, all the way from more of a rustic. Maybe you take your own food and drink, or maybe more of a fully catered and you want to be pampered. That's fine too. We've got that as well. But yeah, I mean, the opportunity is endless. They've got ranches with bongo, which live in like the darkest, deepest part of the jungle in Cameroon. Only come out at nighttime. Got that all the way to we don't have lions or rhinos or any of the big five, but other than actually there are Cape buffalo starting to show up on some Texas ranches too. So it's a world of opportunity, that is for sure. And Google's a great resource. I mean, there's plenty of reviews out there, obviously, but I would just put in whatever species you're interested in, and you'll get some good feedback. There's forums like Texas Bow Hunter forum is a good resource for all things Texas bow hunting, which I know is your passion. So that's a good resource as well. It's kind of like archery talk, but more just focused on Texas. So those are places I would look. But yeah, I'd be happy to answer anyone's questions on a good outfitter or ranch here in Texas if they're interested in hunting the Lone Star State for any manner of species. So
there we go.
We got a lot of turkey too. Do you turkey hunt?
It's started growing on me. Like I've never, we talked a lot about waterfowl and birds and turkey, and I mean, honestly, like birds just have never really interested me all that much, but they've started growing on me. Mm-hmm. Especially turkey. And I just...
Yeah, it's so different.
I don't know. It's just... I think some of it comes from... I've just never been much of a shotgun guy. I just don't... I never, like... I always shot recreationally, so I never really just...
Well, bow hunt them. You can bow hunt them.
Oh, yeah. With turkey, I think that's why I kind of like turkey. I gravitate towards turkey a little bit more because I can, get the new broadhead, get a different broadhead for my setup and still be able to hunt with it. But yeah, I think that's why it started growing on me a little bit more, and I need to, and if nothing else, it just expands my season. It's one more thing that I can go out and hunt, and it's not. I feel like also it's something you can hunt that you don't really need. You don't need to take a 10-day trip for turkey. You can make a couple long weekends out of it and still have a good chance at success.
Sure, you can just go for the afternoon.
Exactly.
Or whenever. But you like elk hunting, and I'll tell you this, like, to me, as someone who started turkey hunting before elk hunting, an elk is like a 600 or 700 pound turkey. During the breeding season, I'm serious, man. When those elk start bugling, it's just like when you've got a gobbler fired up looking for a hen. And it's the same game. It's locate them and then sweet talk them into killing range. And that's why I'm obsessed. I just love turkey hunting for that aspect of, you got to be able to speak the language and you got to get them in close. And that's why that's why I gravitate towards turkey and elk hunting so much. I like being able to, and I'm not the best turkey caller, but proficient enough to get the job done. And I like just the challenge of trying to trick them, with a lot of, we both deer hunt. That's just, trying to figure out what they're doing and then just being there and killing them. You can rattle, grunt a little bit, but by and large, you're not calling in deer,
Yeah.
It's just, it's a different game and one that, is really appealing and fascinating to me. So yeah, we got to get you on a turkey. What do you have? Y'all have Merriam's out there or Rios in California?
To be honest, I'm not sure. It wasn't until this year that I learned there are the 3 different types of turkey. There's the Osceola, and I'm probably massacring the pronunciation in like Florida area.
Oh, there's 4. Yeah, there's 4.
Oh, there's 4.
The Osceola. Yeah.
So there's Osceola, Merriam. What was the other ones?
Rio. And then Eastern. Eastern's probably the most common. We have them in East Texas. And you can only kill 1. And then with our hunting license, we have pretty liberal season. We can kill 4 turkeys. They can all 4 be Rios, or you can kill 3 Rios and 1 Eastern. But yeah, Easterns are like all that turkey hunting and Kansas and all the way up into, like Pennsylvania and I think Wisconsin's probably got easterns, but then as you start going towards you guys, it's kind of the mountains you'll find Merriam's, and then lower elevations you'll find Rios. Okay.
Yeah, that was a whole new revelation for me. Once again, I know short of it appearing on the table like the magic meat fairy. I knew every Thanksgiving. I never knew jack about turkeys until learning all this stuff this year. So it's definitely, they've been growing on me quite a bit.
Well, this spring you'll have to get out there. I don't know what y'all's regulations are on them, but if you can get a tag, and hell, get Jeremiah to take you. He loves turkey hunting.
I will definitely have to hit him up. I was trying to get out with him for the dove opener this year, but it was just, with everything going on, I couldn't manage the 6-hour drive out to where we were hunting. So hopefully we'll find a time to link up and get out for some turkey maybe.
You're gonna get chills on your arms when you hear that first gobbler fire up off the roost. I promise you that. It's like hearing a bugle. It's there's nothing like it.
I will tell you, that's got to be one of my favorite quotes on this podcast so far. That the turkeys are. Or what, elk are 700-pound turkeys or something
yeah,
like
man,
that.
During the rut, that's what they are to me. I mean, it's just you find them and then you sweet talk them and tell them you want to give them a sweet kiss, and then you stick an arrow in them. love it. There's nothing better.
Oh man.
Nothing better. Oh, you mentioned dove hunting, man. That's probably part of my problem. I've developed this passion for elk hunting over the last 3 or 4 years, and archery elk season kind of coincides with when dove hunting gets fired up, and so now I've only been able to go on opening day the last 2 years, and previously I'd be out there 10 times in September. So that's one thing. It's one thing I am a little sad about, because I do love those dove hearts. That is a tasty treat.
It's if there's a problem to have, I think it's I've just got too many hunts planned, and they're starting to overlap.
Oh man!
If
my wife
if only I could get there. Too. Oh, I can imagine.
I gotta go work, honey. I gotta go to the Texas Panhandle and hunt antelope this weekend, which is what I'm doing. And I get to call at work, and she's just like, "You suck, dude." I leave her here with the 3 kids, and I can't wait for the kids to go with me. That's true, but yeah, I think our jobs are probably a little more fun than a lot of people's. There's no doubt about that.
So, as we're kind of winding down here, I always like to finish up with, what advice or words of wisdom would you have for someone either like myself that's from the city and, is interested in hunting, or just in general new hunters that may feel intimidated? There's a lot of animals, a lot to learn, tons of gear to figure out, all this stuff to do to get into the outdoors, get into hunting, they feel like, and are intimidated. What would you say to that person?
Well, yeah, it is intimidating. And if you're trying to do it by yourself, you're doing it wrong, because there's so many great resources out there. There's so many podcasts, whether it's ours or Randy Newberg or Meat Eater or whatever. There's so much good information. Also read, man. I can't emphasize enough. When I first started duck hunting, it was like every month I was waiting for the DU magazine, so I could just get my hands on it. And there might be some fluff in there that you don't really like, but there's always something. And even as someone who's been doing it 15 years, there's always something in that magazine that I was like, oh crap, I never tried that, or shoot, man, I never thought about that. So I would try to get my hands on whatever sport it is, whether it's waterfowling or deer hunting or whatever. Get a magazine, get a book, dive into it, and soak it up, because those are great resources. And I'd also encourage you, and this is a key too, whatever your passion is, get plugged in with a conservation organization that is passionate about that species, whether it's the RMEF like you, or whether it's Ducks Unlimited or Delta Waterfowl, whatever it is. Join a committee. Banquets are the key for all of those conservation organizations. Volunteer. You'll meet some guys that you probably will end up sharing a blind with, and that's the other thing, is go hunting with someone that's done it. that's you can read all you want, and that's a great thing to do, but be friends, make a friend. I promise you probably, even if you don't know it, somebody that hunts. Every one of us does. And whether you go hunting with them or their friend or whatever, try to invite yourself. There's no shame. All they can say is no. So you're going to learn a lot from people that have been doing it for a while. And generally, hunters and anglers are salt of the earth people. And if you show enough interest, they're not going to turn you away. Now, they might not let you shoot their biggest buck on their leash, but hey, maybe they'll let you come out and shoot a doe, So.
Well, and it's one of those things where, you ask someone, you've also got to be cognizant of what you're asking too. It may not be feasible for you to be like, okay, hey, can I come, sit in a tree stand with you?
Right.
But if you ask them, be like, hey, one of these days, can I come out on a hunt with you? You gotta be reasonable. It may be a dove hunt the first time or whatever it is, but you're never gonna get out there if you don't ask. And I've definitely learned between the podcast and just the people I've met, I've definitely learned to not be shy about reaching out to other hunters, because everyone here is just, like you said, salt of the earth people, just for the most part down to earth, good folks. They're not gonna, they may, like you said, the worst they can say is no, but they're not gonna hold it against you for asking.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, every hunter understands that our strength is in numbers, and we need to welcome new hunters into our ranks. I mean, that is the most important thing, because we're in a war. It's nonstop. There are people that just say, that say the most god awful things to us. That would say, "Hey, I hope your kids get hit by an 18-wheeler." Why? Just because you hunt. And that's sad that that's the state of affairs that we live in, but it is. So we got to fight that war. And the most important thing you can do on social media is just kill them with kindness. Don't entertain. Don't stoop to their level and start cussing at them. Just either delete their comments, or if you do want to reply, just say, "Yeah, I'm sorry that you don't understand, but have a nice day." And that will do much more for us as a hunting community than if we stoop to their level.
Absolutely. And I need that reminder quite often. Is I've had a few folks that get on my case. I haven't been doing this quite long enough to really have received too much hate, but I'm a very reactionary person, and so I've learned to kind of give myself a day before I respond.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, when I'm waking up that next day and I've either already forgotten about it, or I just have zero desire to respond anymore and just couldn't care less. So I think we all need that reminder now and again.
Yeah, and it's not easy when someone, especially if they make it personal. But at the end of the day, it's better just to, like you said, just ignore it. Because you're not gonna. Here's the thing: you're not gonna change their mind. The anti-hunters that preach that vile hate for us, we're not changing their mind. And when you reply to them in the way that they talk to you, all it does is make you look bad to the people that are on the fence. Mm-hmm. They're like, I don't hunt, but my neighbor does or whatever, and it seems cool. He invites me over for a meal once in a while. But it's not for me, but I'm not against it. And those are the people that we need to keep on our side. Because that's like, it's like 10% of us, 10% of Americans probably hunt, 10% of them hate us for hunting, and then the other 80% are just kind of like, yeah, whatever. But if we started to see a trend in that go the other way, and they're all like, starting to join the anti-hunting ranks, then we got a more serious problem on our hands than we already do.
Absolutely. So if people, we already talked about where we can find the podcast, but if people wanted to follow all of your shenanigans, where can they find you online?
Shenanigans. So I do have a lot of shenanigans. So a good place to see me making a fool of myself a lot of the time, and sometimes even blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while, and sometimes I get lucky, like on the mule deer hunt. But Instagram is just Lone Star Outdoors Show, and Facebook Lone Star Outdoors Show, and then the website is just LoneStarOutdoorsShow.com. So that's the best place to follow along.
Awesome, man. Well, definitely, like I said, make sure to link to all of that on the show notes page. Once again, livingcountryinthecity.com/40 for episode 40.
All right. Sam, thank you so much, man. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you a little bit, and hopefully in the near future we can get you on our show.
That would be awesome, man. It's been great having you on. I think I'm really happy with how this one turned out. So.
All right, brother. Well, thanks again. It's been a treat.
All right, y'all, that'll do it for episode 40 of Living Country in the City. Make sure y'all give Cable a follow and check out those episodes of the Lone Star Outdoor Show. You can find links to all of those on our show notes page at livingcountryinthecity.com/40. Thank y'all for listening. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe and leave an honest rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher. But in the meantime, keep it country, y'all.
Thank y'all for listening to Living Country in the City. Get show notes and check out the blog, product reviews, events, and more at livingcountryinthecity.com.
It's not a huge surprise. I'm really glad we just finished this up because now the gardener is standing right outside my window with a leaf blower.